Please send someone.
We're coming, okay?
Connor's messed up bad. We can't find Mallory. Morgan's messed up bad. We can't find Mallory, Mom. Bro, you smiling like it's funny.
Sit down, sit down.
My girlfriend's gone, bro. You think it's funny?
Sit down, sit down.
Hope he's right. Yeah.
Sit down.
Y'all know Alec Murdaugh?
Oh yeah, I know that name.
That's his son.
That's so driving the boat.
Good luck.
Murdaugh Family is well known in South Carolina. They've sent thousands of defendants to prison and more than a dozen men to death row.
The Murdaughs are a powerful Low-Country family. For more than 85 years, a Murdaugh has served as the 14th Circuit Solicitor. The 14th Circuit Solicitor's office covers 5 counties in the Low-Country: Allendale, Beaufort, Colleton, Hampton, and Jasper.
The list of people who might hate the Murdaughs and seek revenge is long.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alec Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child just shot badly.
Mystery is swirling over the slayings of a mother and son from a prominent family.
As detectives look for clues in the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh in Colleton County, they have now reopened another unsolved case.
SLED announced Tuesday they're investigating Stephen Smith's deaths after information was found during the investigation into the double homicide of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh.
What are some of the theories right now?
All sorts of theories.
It's been more than 2 months since Paul and Maggie Murdaugh were murdered in Colleton County. No answer as to who's responsible.
Tonight, we are learning new information about the murder investigation of a high-profile family in the Lowcountry.
Alec Murdaugh is now checked into a rehabilitation facility and is recovering after being shot this past weekend.
It's tough for us. It changes you as a family.
Do you think anyone in your family interfered in any way?
I don't.
Normal conditions. So no, we did exactly what's normal. This is being handled in a very normal fashion.
Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Today I want to talk about the Murdaugh family. Now there's been a lot of murder in the Murdaugh family. You see, since 2015 there have been a lot of mysterious deaths surrounding the Murdaugh family, as well as near deaths. And people are talking, and there have been tons of conspiracy theories. I want to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I'm going to give you guys the facts, we'll discuss the theories, and then you can decide for yourself. So the whole thing started when Paul Murdaugh, son of Alex Murdaugh, a very prominent attorney in the area, basically was drunk and was driving a boat with his friends, and he crashed the boat, and one of the people on the boat died. Now, on this boat were 6 young adults, and there were 3 couples. It was Paul Murdaugh and his now ex-girlfriend, Morgan. Then there was Mallory Beach and her boyfriend, Anthony Cook. And then Anthony Cook's cousin, Connor Cook, and his girlfriend, Miley. Although all of them were adults, they were all under the drinking age. This happened in South Carolina in the Low Country, and it happened in 2019, February 24th to be exact. What happened was the boat was going at a high rate of speed. It hit the bridge.
What bridge is Paul? What bridge is this? Paul, what bridge?
911, where's your emergency? Hello? Police, fire, EMS. Hello?
We're in a boat crash on Arthur Street.
Evidently, the girl was sitting on her boyfriend's lap when they hit the bridge at a high rate of speed, and now she's missing.
Yeah. So there was 3 of y'all left in the boat, and 3 went out the boat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mom, y'all need to come to me for quick. We hit a bridge in the boat. Connor's messed up bad. We can't find Mallory. Morgan's messed up bad. Mom, there's 50 cops here, Coast Guard, everything. We can't find Mallory. It's been 30 minutes, Mom. Get that motherfucker right there away from me. Bro, you smiling like it's fucking funny.
Sit down, sit down.
My been gone, bro. You think it's funny?
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down.
Oh, he's right. Hell.
Sit down.
All the passengers were drunk. The police report actually describes them as, quote, grossly drunk. Although they were grossly drunk, according to police, no sobriety tests were taken at the scene. The only ones that were taken at the hospital. Everybody was several times over the legal limit. And this was hours after the crash. In addition to that, there was surveillance footage of Paul buying alcohol hours before the crash. And you can see him bringing it to the car that's towing the boat, the very boat that will be in the crash. Then you see them going to a bar, Paul and Connor, and they drink. This is also soon before the crash. And lastly, the moments before the crash, you see them walking to the boat and you see them stumbling as well. So clearly they were all drunk and they should not have been driving anything. Furthermore, the photos of the boat after the crash shows not only blood everywhere, but you see empty beer cans, lots of them in the trash, and then there are more fresh ones that are on ice. Mallory's boyfriend, so that's Anthony, he's told attorneys that Paul had a, quote, crazy alter ego that his friends called Timmy, who came out when he was drunk, and that stripping his clothes off was a regular habit of Timmy. Witnesses have said under oath that Paul, then 20, was drunk and enraged in a fight with his girlfriend, slapping her in the face and stripping off his clothes before crashing the boat. After the crash, 4 of the 5 teens were rushed to the hospital. A nurse said that Paul was, quote, only wearing boxers and that he was grossly intoxicated and belligerent, and that he was the most intoxicated and uncooperative of those involved. It would actually be a week after the crash that Mallory would be found. She was missing for a week, and when they found her, she was dead, and she was like in a marsh like 5 miles away from the crash site. The coroner stated that Mallory died by getting hit in the head when she was ejected, or maybe soon after, and then that kind of knocked her out, and then she drowned because of it, and that's how she died. So I'm hoping that she didn't really feel anything and it was quite instant. So the first question that officers wanted to know, and what everyone was trying to establish, is who was driving.
Told him
I beg this motherfucker to let me drive this goddamn. He ain't gonna get no fucking trouble.
Oh, yeah. Is everybody on the boat's been drinking?
Yeah.
Especially the driver?
I beg to drive that
but
fucking
the
boat.
driver, how much has he had to drink tonight?
Me and him about fought on the fucking dock because I told him not to go up there to that fucking bar that we needed to be going home.
The driver is the one with no clothes on, correct? The one you were getting mad at back there, he was in his drawers.
He was the last one driving whenever I got down in the Florida boat and held on boxers. Yes, sir.
We need to know exactly who's driving because his ass will be responsible, okay?
Y'all know Alec Murdaugh?
Oh, yeah, I know that name.
That's his son.
That's so driving the boat?
Good luck.
Who was the last person you saw driving?
I'm pretty sure it was Paul. He was just like, I need to drive and all this kind of stuff. He was, like I said, he's very persistent with driving, so I'm pretty sure.
And this is where some of the controversy comes into play, because you can hear from the dash cam footage that at first everyone says that Paul was driving, but Connor is kind of brought into it, and there becomes this confusion somewhat about, was it Paul, was it Connor, when it seems like originally there really was no confusion. It was Paul. The boat is Paul's dad's boat, and Paul had filmed himself on social media according to an article. That video, I can't find it. It was probably removed, but there was a video showing him driving that night at some point. And in that dash cam footage, you can hear things happen that go against the typical protocol that's supposed to happen. Certain things were said, but the police report does not reflect that. And then certain things should have been collected as evidence that were not. One of the officers asks Anthony Cook. Anthony Cook is Mallory's boyfriend. He asks Anthony who was driving.
Yes. Hey, I'm with Department of Natural Resources. Who was driving the boat? Crash out 67.
The last time I grabbed my girlfriend and got down in the bottom of the boat, Paul was driving.
Paul was driving?
Yes.
Okay. and Paul was driving, not Connor?
If Connor was driving, it happened after I had done flipped the fuck out and laid down in the bottom of the boat.
So according to this article, this officer is called Officer Pritchard. And Officer Pritchard was supposed to write down what Anthony said, that the last time he looked, before the crash, Paul was driving. Instead, the officer said that Anthony wasn't sure who was driving, and then, quote, and later that morning, after speaking with other passengers at a nearby hospital, Pritchard told his supervisor he suspected someone else entirely. Pritchard testified at a deposition that he did not know why he didn't document Cook's statement. Then there was another thing that happened, which was another officer, Officer Keener. He was talking to Paul Murdaugh, and Paul Murdaugh was asking for a phone.
Sure. Can I use your phone? Can I use your phone? Hey, bro, I ain't got my phone on me, brother. You ain't got your phone on you? No, you dropped yours in the grass right back there.
That don't surprise me.
Okay, what's your last name, buddy?
Murdaugh.
M-U-R-D-A-U-G-H. Okay, what's your first name?
Paul.
Now, what was supposed to happen was the officer supposed to take that phone and put it into evidence, but that's not what happened. He repeatedly told him, your phone is over there, and then at one point he was like, you know what, let me go grab your phone for you.
Can I use your phone? I don't have my phone on me, buddy. Here, stay right here. I'm going to go get that one you dropped on the ground back there, all right? Yes, sir.
It says, in a later deposition, Keener said that if he faced a similar situation and saw a suspect throw a phone on the ground again, he would keep it as evidence. Quote, looking back now, hindsight is 20/20, he said. It turns out that both Officer Pritchard and Officer Keener have connections to the Murdaugh family. But more on that later. Let's continue with what happened at the day of the crash. Now, Miley, that's Connor's girlfriend, Miley told police that the thing that Paul was concerned with was calling his grandfather. Not his father, but he first wanted to call his grandfather and then his father.
You said Paul took your phone to call his granddad.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he call his granddad? Did he say why? Why didn't he call his dad, or was there?
Well, because, like, you know, they're lawyers and stuff, and he wanted him to be there first. Just called his granddad, because that's what he does in everything.
And his dad a lawyer?
Yes. And he just, like, would not leave anybody alone about having a phone to call somebody.
Soon after he called them, they showed up to the hospital and started meddling. Paul Murdaugh's father and grandfather are the ones who went to the hospital and prevented the teens from cooperating with law enforcement, according to DNR Captain Robert McCullough. Quote, one of the nurses recalled Paul's father walking around introducing himself to EMS and ER staff and walking throughout the ER trying to talk to all patients involved. A nurse for Morgan recalled Alex Murdaugh trying to enter her room multiple times while she was being interviewed by law enforcement. You need to understand who the Murdaughs were and what they did in the area. You see, the Murdaughs are not just any typical family. The Murdaugh family is like a big fish in a small pond. They are one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, families in the area.
3 generations of Murdaughs held a solicitor's job in this region for years. They also own a prominent law firm where Randy and Alec currently work.
There is a position in the area called solicitor.
In South Carolina, a circuit solicitor is comparable to that of a state or district attorney in other jurisdictions.
And since 1920, almost 100 years now, a Murdaugh, and not just a Murdaugh, any Murdaugh, but father, son, his son, like the line of that specific Murdaughs has been in that position in the area. Like a royal family, like a dynasty.
The community questioning if the family used their connections to protect Paul the night of the boat crash.
I see words like dynasty used and power, and I don't know exactly how people use those words, but we're just regular people.
According to one attorney in the area, quote, you don't cross the Murdaughs. Or if you do cross them, you don't let them find out that it was you who crossed them, because they'll come down on you hard, and they'll come down on you with all that they've got. and they have a lot of influence and power, and they'll use it against their enemies. And their influence isn't just in government, because in addition to being top solicitors in the area, they also have a law firm. It's a law firm with a bunch of other families, and the Murdaughs play a large role in that law firm. And that law firm, ironically, made its wealth, its specialty is wrongful death suits for fatal crashes and collisions, the very thing the heir to the Murdaugh dynasty is being implicated in. As you can imagine, they were both revered in the community and resented, because many people felt like they owed the Murdaughs. There were a lot of people in the area who had some kind of crash happen or some accident where their relative died, and they went to the Murdaughs for help, and the Murdaughs would go and they would win a settlement for them, and they would get hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and they would feel like if it wasn't for the Murdaughs, they wouldn't have this money. And so they would go around town every time they saw the Murdaughs, you know, it was very that. At the same time, there were other people, their family members were put in jail or sentenced to death because of the Murdaughs. The Murdaughs have sent thousands of people to jail and have put over a dozen people to death, or have sentenced them to death, should I say. They didn't like the Murdaughs, but as much as they didn't like them, they were also scared of them. There were very few people, if any, that were willing to talk to the media about things they didn't like or that the Murdaughs did. And if they did speak, it was always under the condition of anonymity. One such person said, quote, "They are known for suing people. That would be the last place you would want to find yourself, in court with these folks suing you." Another quote, "The Murdaughs know everyone. They are well liked, and they make it a point to stop and talk to people, just like politicians. They never know who might be on a jury." One of the most famous, or should I say infamous, Murdaughs is Buster Murdaugh. That's who Paul's brother was named after. He became solicitor in 1940. Quote, "He was a legend, a bigger-than-life presence. He was a win-at-all-costs solicitor. He cared about getting convictions in a capital case, and he did not care if it was reversed on appeal. He repeatedly did things he had to know were improper, primarily in his closing arguments, where he could not keep himself confined to the rules. Actually, the South Carolina Supreme Court has rebuked, quote, this is a quote, rebuked Buster Murdaugh Jr., who sent 14 men to death row for egregious jury arguments in several death penalty cases. Another thing they do too, which I forgot to mention, is money. They spend insane amounts of money in the area. Like they spent $1 million like redoing the whole courthouse. The very courthouse they argue in. Money on this in the community. Fund that. Throw money, which is great, right? Oh, wow, they're so generous. They're so benevolent. That's so nice of them. True. However, you know, is there an ulterior motive? We don't know. What we do know, though, is with that kind of spending, you get influence. There's a reason why when people want to go to Harvard, they donate to the library. And that's the backstory on the Murdaugh family. So remember those two officers that I said were connected to the Murdaugh family? Let's get back to that. I want to tell you how. So the first one was Officer Keener. This is the one that was like, didn't take the phone from Paul and went and grabbed the phone for him that he dropped and brought it to him.
Here, stay right here. I'm going to go get that one you dropped on the ground back there, all right?
That officer, turns out that his father died in a fatal car crash. He went to the Murdaugh law firm to sue. They won a settlement for him and his mom. Each got over $750,000. So maybe he is thankful for that. Maybe he feels like he somewhat owes Murdaugh family something. And so that might explain why he was very helpful to the son of the guy who got him almost $1 million. The other one is Officer Pritchard, the one who didn't write down Paul's name. He is a friend of Paul's uncle. He also participated in a golf tournament that was hosted by the Murdaugh family, the law firm. So those are the connections between the two and might potentially explain why they went against protocol and did things that only really benefited Paul. One person said, "These are the good old boys, but they're really smart good old boys. And they're not all bad neither. They got a lot of support here." They had so much support that it took 2 months, almost 2 months, almost, not fully, but almost 2 months for any charges to be filed. Remember how there was some confusion about whether Paul was driving. Well, the confusion was that it may have also been Connor. Remember Connor Cook? Connor went to the bar with Paul before they got on the boat. One of the officers was trying to almost imply that it could have been Connor. He asked who was driving and was told Paul was driving, and then he again was like, who was driving? Are you sure it's not Connor, or was it Connor?
Hey, I'm with Department of Natural Resources. Who was driving the boat?
Right, y'all 6-7.
The last time I grabbed my girlfriend and got down in the bottom of the boat, Paul was driving.
Paul was driving?
Yes.
Okay. And Paul was driving, not Connor?
That was the first inkling that they may have been trying to put it on Connor to protect Paul. And that idea blew up when Connor filed a petition saying, hey, no, there's a full-blown conspiracy that's trying to paint me as the driver and not Paul. Now, interestingly enough, remember how the Murdaugh family, their whole claim to fame, besides being solicitors, is this wrongful death crash lawsuit? What do you call it? Specialty that they have? Well, they got sued for that very thing by Mallory's family.
There's moments that we have that things remind us of Mallory, and we break down at times.
That's not the only wrongful death they were being sued for. Turns out in 2018, Gloria Satterfield died, and her estate sued Alec Murdaugh, the only one, for wrongful death, and he settled. It was a trip and fall accident. Apparently only Alec and Gloria were in the house when this happened. We find out later that Gloria is actually their housekeeper, and she, even in her obituary, it said that she loves the family. So it seems like, you know, things were on good terms between her family and the Murdaughs. We don't know any information about what really happened. What we do know, however, there was a settlement, and the person who was representing Gloria's estate was actually a family friend of the Murdaughs. And that's when theories started coming out about, was this like a kickback deal where, you know, his friend sues him, and they're screwing the insurance company, and then they get a cut kind of thing because there was a settlement, and then the lawyer gets part of that settlement. So did he like split that money with his friend Alec, who was being sued? I don't know. Conspiracy. It's truly a conspiracy. People were talking. Family and friends of Mallory were upset. Like, how is there no arrest being made? They were totally drunk. Everybody knows this. It's a small town. And then April 18 rolls around, and Paul Murdaugh is finally indicted on charges of boating under the influence causing death and 2 counts of boating under the influence causing great bodily injury. And finally, then we had an arrest. But it wasn't even a typical arrest because Paul never spent a night in jail. Paul Murdaugh is constantly being shielded and protected by his family and his family's connections and the people in the community who respect them and feel like they owe them. He's constantly being coddled and babied. And what does he plead? Paul pled not guilty.
To say about that, about why he decided to plead not guilty? Because he's not guilty.
And this pissed people off. Not only did he plead not guilty, he did not spend a day in jail, or should I say a night in jail. And his lawyer argued for him to, you know, post bond so that he wouldn't have to do that he's not a flight risk. And the judge, according to many people who were following the case, seemed like he was gonna go with whatever the Murdaugh said, because he came out, he very emphatically was like, I don't see him as a flight risk, he should definitely get bond.
No evidence presented to this court that the defendant will not appear when he is called to court. In fact, all the evidence points otherwise. I'm going to set a personal recognizance bond in the amount of $50,000.
Normal conditions. So no, we did exactly what's normal. This is being handled in a very normal fashion.
And so people were like, between the judge, who seems like he's already on their side, and the not guilty plea and all the power that they have, this dude isn't going to spend a night in jail ever. He's going to get off scot-free. He's planning to, because he pled not guilty. And so people were already like, no justice. Maybe street justice, but no justice in the system. Adding insult to injury, When Paul was let out on bond, he got pulled over.
Charles, next to you. So far for that 20 years, South Carolina. How you doing, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm Officer Glover State Transport.
And guess what he got pulled over for?
Now, the reason I pulled you over, you were booking it. Yes. Okay, I got you at 78.
78?
Yes.
Speeding. And guess what he was driving? A truck towing a boat. A boat just like the one that he crashed. And he was going on a 2-lane windy road, 78 miles an hour. Then the fact that he's towing a boat, what does that mean? That, you know, he was driving the boat as well? After crashing a boat and killing someone, that he's out on bail for that very crime? People were pissed. They're like, talk about privilege, talk about abuse of power, talk about lack of justice and accountability. Once you think of all that and you see what's about to happen next, it might not be as shocking. Because shortly after that, Paul and his mother were shot to death in their home.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
This is Alex Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child shot badly.
Carlton, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Moselle Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
I've been up to it now. It's bad. They're on the ground out at my kennels.
Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I've been gone. I just came back.
And you sure they're not breathing?
They're not. Neither one of them's moving.
Okay, is it a house or a mobile home?
It's a house.
I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
I'd already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm going to call. I need to call some of my family.
All right, we're getting them out there to you, okay?
Both victims were shot multiple times, and those reportedly came from multiple weapons.
2 weapons were used, a shotgun and an assault rifle. I find it very difficult to believe that unless you're a Hollywood actor pretending you're carrying 2 long guns, that one person did this. I think this may very well be related to the death of Mallory Beach. No robbery, no burglary. So what was the motivation?
Investigators have a person of interest. Now that person is Alex Murdaugh. He's the father of Paul and the husband of Maggie. Alex Murdaugh discovered his son and wife's bodies outside of a building on their property.
The father who found them, Alex, had a quote, ironclad alibi.
Alex Murdaugh had just taken his dying father back to the hospital, and he went to check on his mother. His family tells us when he returned to his home, he made that gruesome discovery.
I can't imagine the horror that my brother's experiencing.
Everybody in the community, including the police, felt like this was a street justice thing. They all felt like Paul was the target and that Maggie was like collateral damage, that she just unfortunately was in the wrong place at the wrong time. A lot of people had very nice things to say about Maggie. They said that she was pure-hearted, very generous, kind. She would help everyone. They had very good things to say about her. Not as many good things to say about Paul. Some people said he had it coming. But in the community that they were in, you know, it was this horrible thing. They had a funeral. And then 3 days after Paul and Maggie were shot dead, the grandfather, he died.
Longtime 14th Circuit solicitor Randolph Murdaugh III has died. He is the grandfather of Paul, the father-in-law of Maggie. Murdaugh served as solicitor from 1987 to 2006. He was 81 years old. The current 14th Circuit solicitor Duffy Stone releasing this statement on the passing, saying, quote, "He was recognized locally and nationally as a great prosecutor and a great person. I will never forget my time trying cases with him."
He was 81. And they say he died of natural causes, which very well could be true. It could be that, you know, the death of his grandson triggered something in him and he died of a broken heart, or he was dying anyway and this just kind of set it off. Either way, he died. And then people started talking because some people were thinking that Alex Murdaugh, the father who discovered them, had something to do with it, that he was upset that the case was going to trial because shortly before the trial date was about to be set and they were deciding to go to trial, they were trying to do mediation and that failed, and that's why they decided to go to trial, and that all the details were going to come out during trial.
Murdaugh's attorney made his plea of not guilty to 3 felony counts and waived the hearing of any charges, which means the details will stay hidden until it goes to trial.
And that there was an investigation for obstruction of justice against Alex, the father. And so people were basically saying that Alex had a lot of reasons for this all to go away, that he was upset at his son for ruining the family name, that he just kind of took them out. But before we could even figure out what was going on with Paul and Maggie's death, the police came out and said, oh, we're investigating this case, and due to the information we found in this case, we're opening another case from 2015, the case of Stephen Smith.
Hampton County 911, where's your emergency?
Hello, I just going down the Crocketville Road. I see somebody laying out.
And is it in the road or on the side of the road?
In the road.
Oh, in the road?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll get an officer headed out that way to see what's going on.
Okay, so he laying in the road. I ain't moving or nothing like that, but somebody gonna hit him. It's dark. Somebody gonna hit him.
All right, we'll get an officer headed out that way.
Okay.
All right, sir.
They said he was shot in the head, and then it turned out it was a hit and run, and then he was beat up, and so the story just kept changing.
Smith's case is now with SLED Midlands and out of the hands of SLED Low Country.
I was ecstatic, very ecstatic.
This is what happened, okay? Basically, Stephen Smith, he was openly gay, and he was in school with Buster Murdaugh. There were rumors going on, unconfirmed, but there were rumors that were mentioned in the case file, the police report, that said that people were saying that Buster and Stephen were having an intimate relationship. What happened to Stephen was he was going to nursing school. He was very smart. He wanted to be a doctor. So he was going to nursing school and he was driving. They found him in the middle of the road. They found his car with the gas tank open and the little, the lid that screws on, that was hanging out, and the door was open for the gas tank. So they think he ran out of gas, started walking, and then something happened. Now, interestingly enough, they didn't find car debris or tire marks. Usually when someone gets hit by a car, their shoes fly off or things in their pockets fly out. And they said that although his shoes were loosely tied, they were still on his feet. And that, the way they were tied, if he was hit by a car, they would have flown off. So I found this really, really good article. And actually these news source, I think it's called FITSNEWS, they've been following this case wonderfully. A lot of great information over there. Everything as usual, all my sources are always linked down below. So I want to read you some things about the case that they mentioned on their site. The chain of custody was broken when Stephen's clothes were left unattended at the funeral home. They said that his head was bruised and misshapen by blunt force. His shoulder was partially dislocated, and he had no other major injuries. There was a dispute between whether it was a gunshot homicide or a hit and run accident. And then the highway patrol officers were told, oh, you know what, it's not an accident. You don't have to be at the autopsy, which is strange because then they did say it was an accident because the pathologist, her name is Dr. Erin Presnell, ruled that it was a hit and run crash. Apparently there was a hostile exchange that happened between the CHP officers who spoke to her because they have experience with, hit and runs, and they couldn't get a direct answer as to why she ruled his death a vehicle accident, because remember, they were told you don't have to show up, it's not a vehicle accident. Coroner also came out and he said he didn't think it was a hit and run. The way his body was there, it seemed like something had happened and then his body was placed there. And like I said, there were no tire marks or any debris or any type of anything around there. It was almost like they put his body there for it to be run over. And even the guy who called 911 said, like, someone's gonna hit him.
Somebody's going to hit him.
All right, we'll get an officer headed out that way.
Okay.
All right, sir.
People were speculating that this was part of the plan. Put him in the middle of the road so it looks like he got hit. And the case was kind of just left there. It was like a cold case until this reopening that just happened. Then there was another rumor that Buster was there. Okay, and this person who was spoken to by police, everyone has code names, they called him Kevin. This person was terrified, did not want to say what he heard, what he knew, did not want to say. They repeatedly asked him. He finally agreed to do it, but he didn't want to do it over the phone. He wanted to do it in person. He didn't even want to do it in the town where they all were. He wanted to go in Charleston, like farther away, and meet with the officer there. So they arranged to meet, and it was in that meeting in person where he told the officer that he heard that Buster Murdaugh was there. He says recently in the past week and a half, he heard that 2 or 3 people were riding around 601 and saw Stephen on the side of the road and were messing around with him. They stuck something out of the window. Kevin said he heard it was Buster Murdaugh. He asked him who he heard it from, and he says, another person. Now, the person he heard it from is also the person who said that Stephen and Buster were in a relationship together. So I don't know if that changes anything for you, but that's that. He said that the other person who was with Buster immediately skipped town and moved to Oklahoma after this happened. Quote, "It's just weird to me. All this could be a very strange coincidence, but it's just weird to me." The Murdaugh name was mentioned at least 40 times within the investigation. One of the detectives flat out said, like, we're not classifying this as anything other than a murder. And just when you think things couldn't get any stranger, they do. All of a sudden, we hear that Alex Murdaugh has been shot in the head.
Well, it's a storyline that has much of South Carolina in shock. Alex Murdaugh found shot just 3 months after his wife and son were both found shot.
Murdaugh himself called 911 to report that he'd been shot. Murdaugh was changing a tire on the side of the road in rural Hampton County when a car passed him, turned around, and someone shot him.
Alex Murdaugh is now checked into a rehabilitation facility and is recovering after being shot this past weekend.
And we're being told it was, quote, a superficial gunshot wound to the head.
He was airlifted to a hospital with a superficial gunshot wound to the head. At last check, he is in stable condition.
Nobody saw this, but he claims it happened, and he calls 911 and he tells them. He tells them that he was driving and his car got a flat tire. And so he went out of his car and he was changing the flat tire, and this truck drove by and they were like looking at him, and they circled, and then they came back around again and they shot him. They shot him in the head, and so he called 911. But before the first responders could come, there was another higher ranking official who came. And then Alex Murdaugh was airlifted to the hospital. But also, officers said he had a superficial wound. And then there was a weird thing that happened with the police report where at first it said there was no visible injury, but then it was changed to major injury.
Normal conditions. So no, we did exactly what's normal. This is being handled in a very normal fashion.
And then when asked about it, there was 2 different people who responded with 2 different responses. One said, quote, "I presume that the deputy checked the no visible sign of the injury on the incident report because he was not able to assess Alex since Alex had left the scene before the deputy arrived." And that's when they said, you know, the Good Samaritan helped him leave. The other guy said, no, he did have an injury, but that was just a mistake, probably a computer error. Computer error. If the wound was so bad, how come they said it was superficial? And then he was also released from the hospital very soon after and checked into rehab. So how bad is your head wound if you can just discharge yourself and then go into rehab? You don't need pain pills for that. Then it was like even more of a cover up. People were like, what's going on? And then holes started to get poked in the story because he said that he was changing a tire. Well, it turns out the Mercedes, I think it's a GLS SUV, apparently that type of car has run flat tires. And if you don't know, run flat tires are tires that if you do get, a nail stuck in them or they're slashed or somehow, you get a flat tire, it could still run, hence the term run flat, for a certain amount of time because they're reinforced and blah, blah, blah. Furthermore, that type of car, because it has run flat tires, doesn't have a spare tire. So how are you changing the tire? With what? And for what reason? This all happened just a few miles from his home. So if he did notice that and he had run flats and no spare tire, then he could just drive home and have it towed away and fixed and stuff. So people were like, what really happened? Did you shoot yourself to get the heat off you because you shot your wife and son? Or other people who support him were like, damn, people really hate this family. They shot the son after he killed Mallory. They shot the mom just for being there. And now they're trying to kill the dad. Could it be just street justice? Because they had a lot of enemies. Just with the Mallory boat crash alone, it's hard to tell. It's like one of those things where there's too many suspects. I don't know. You decide. Guess what? After this shooting happened, he resigned from the law firm and talked about, he's been going through struggles with the murder of his family and he's been having issues. And then the firm came out and was like, he resigned because he stole money in the millions from us. Oh, and guess what? We also found out he has an addiction to opioids.
Time, new twist in the Murdaugh murder mystery. Alex Murdaugh says he's heading to rehab.
Which the whole thing has changed now because people are like, wait, what? What else is he doing? The credibility of the Murdaugh family is shot at this point, okay? The son is drinking and killing people. The father is popping pills and stealing from the law firm. What's left? And that's when the house of cards started crumbling. The law firm had nothing to do with him. His brother was like, I have no idea. He got disbarred. Those are the facts and some of the theories that have been swirling around. I'd love to know what you guys think. Like, do you think this is street justice? Do you think this is like a family annihilator situation? Do you think that Alex Murdaugh shot himself or was actually shot? Do you think what happened to him is connected to what happened to his son? What do you think about Stephen Smith and Gloria Satterfield? I mean, it's a lot. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.